Today I'm going to be making a set of precision scroll forks. These work exactly the same way as larger scroll forks, except that the tines are oriented 90 degrees to the handle. This allows you to work in really tight spaces without getting your hands in the way. I'm going to be making these out of a 10-inch length of 3/8 round spring steel. First thing I need to do is upset the ends slightly so I have a little bit more material to work with. Once I split the bar into a fork shape, I want to make sure that I have enough material to work with. I want the base of the tines to be fairly heavy, and then I just want them to gradually taper to a tip. But you can shape them however you want to suit whatever job you're doing. Then I need to shape the end into a pretty basic wedge shape. This will start to define the shape of the tines. I'm just tapering the two sides of the fork to a blunt point. The top and bottom face are just basically left the same thickness as the bar. Splitting the bar is going to take a few heats. First of all, the bar is very small and you're working with spring steel, so anytime the bar cools down to a dull red heat, it's got to go back in the fire. Otherwise, you're going to be putting stress in those tines and they could fracture when you're heat treating them. So just take your time and just realize that it's going to take a number of small heats to get the job done. And the same goes for rough forging the tines to shape. Just take your time, do it in a number of small heats, and try to make sure you don't put any stress into the metal. And then I do the final cleanup with a file. I make sure there's a good radius on the inside as well as the outside, because sometimes these forks are used to bend a complete circle, so you want to have a nice smooth radius all the way around. Now unfortunately the camera focused on the door rather than where I was working, but I wanted to illustrate here that when you're shaping these tines, you hammer right at the base of the tines, and that brings them together without curving them around too much. If you hammer them on the sides, the tips are going to bend in before the base, and you'll just build a circle. You're not going to be building a narrow set of forks. Here I'm just flattening out a section of the handle so I can bend it into a pretty simple loop. I always put a loop or some way of hanging these tools up. It not only identifies it as a tool, but it makes it a lot easier to keep organized. A lot of these types of tools have gotten lost over the years simply because the people cleaning up shops after somebody passed away just didn't recognize what they were or the potential use of them. They might look at something like this and think it's a tack puller or something and just might have even thrown it away, not given it any thought. And old blacksmith shops were filled with tools like this, something that a smith designed to do a specific job, and it suited the way he worked, and it may or may not have made sense to anybody else. So somebody coming in later looking at all this would just see it as junk. It's hard for a novice to understand exactly how much inventing actually went on in a blacksmith shop. If somebody thought he needed a tool or had an improvement for a tool, he just went ahead and did it. He didn't say, well, no one else has one of these, there must be a reason, I'm not going to bother. He just said, no, I got a better way of doing it, I'm going to go ahead and try it. May have worked, may not. That isn't the point. He got an idea and he ran with it. And, we call it thinking outside the box now, and, we think it's something that our generation invented, but this went on for centuries, trust me. We have this idea today that all of blacksmithing was carried out with the standard set of tools, a hammer, tongs, chisels, and punches, and that sort of thing. But in reality, those probably just made up like 25% of the smith's tools. A lot of his work was done with specific tools that he designed and made for specific jobs, and over the years they just filled the shop. These tools are going to be under quite a bit of stress, especially if you're working cold metal, so I'm going to heat treat them to make the tines as strong as possible. This is an oil hardening steel, so I'm quenching an oil and I'm drawing the temper to a full blue color. Anywhere from a peacock to a full dark blue is fine. I know that a dark blue on this particular steel will give the tines a great amount of flex, so I'll be able to tell when I'm overstressing the tool without any danger of breaking the tines off. You'll need to make a few different sizes of these to fit different cross sections of bar. Here you can see how the tines are just a little too far apart, so I can't grab the end of the bar enough to form a nice tight loop on the end. But here where the bar is a little over twice as thick, it grabs on very well, and I'm able to put a very, very tight bend anywhere I want along this section. The real advantage of this design is that you can place them in a very tight area and your hands aren't working next to each other, they're opposite each other. This not only allows you to see what you're doing, but because you're working with a fork, you don't need to apply any pressure to grip the metal, you just bend it to the shape that you want. So it makes it very easy to control the bend and make very precise adjustments to any shape. The shape of the tool also allows you to get into areas that you can't normally reach with a normal set of scroll tongs. Hi, I'm Dennis and thanks for watching. If you like this video, by all means give it a thumbs up. If you want to support this channel, you have a couple of options to do that. The first thing, of course, is to just subscribe. Second, if you have ideas or photographs of things you'd like to see on this channel, send them along. I'll turn them into a video. If you want to lend your financial support to this channel, you have a couple of options there. You can go to my channel homepage and click on the options that you see in the banner. So thank you for your support, and with your help I'll be doing this for some time to come. We'll see you next time.